has enough resources to provide health, education, and also do certain social safety nets. That is very important for Africa to move forward. Private sector in Africa also needs to invest domestically. We have pension fund, we have sovereign investment fund, we have quite a number of them. But if government doesn't have enough resources, government is going to issue debts, everybody is going to prefer government instruments because they are safer, and then that kind of crowd out private investment. So if government is able to mobilize more resources, government may borrow less, then those very the engine of growth that they are supposed to be for the continent in the true sense of it. The other one is international investors. They are always looking for where to go. If our home is right, definitely, if we have good macroeconomic environment, if inflation in many of our countries are relatively stable, exchange rates predictable but not very controlled, and then GDP growth is robust enough and people can predict our economies, we can definitely attract investors from outside who will complement what we are doing domestically as Africa. So, in sum, financing for development requires a lot of money. Development itself is very wide. It encompasses every aspect of us as human beings, and we then need to get capital from everywhere we can get it from government to the domestic is doing, and many of us are doing very important. But we must also find a way of leveraging them and getting them more coordinated in a manner that can solve our problem in a more systemic way as Africans. Thank you.
I think the question is, what are we doing to crowding capital, right? I look at it from a practical perspective, what NSI is doing in-house. Technically speaking, the act that sets up the authority stated that we must not make losses. So our funds cannot be used as first loss capital. And she spoke about philanthropic investing of funds. But we should also note something, that even though you're going to bring philanthropic, you have a lot of philanthropic funds, they need to know that that investment or that project you want them to bring first loss capital in have the market and we provide the returns when the commercial investors come in. That is where we have problems. Viability funding, project preparatory facilities, these are two issues that we are having, whereby because of that, we've not been able to crowd in a lot of funding. Another is the fact that the corporate governance in most of these projects, they are also very weak. So we've not been able to crowd in funding. So what are we doing in-house? We have to be innovative. So in our own space, we are not a bank, we are not a developmental institution, we are a sovereign wealth fund manager. And as such, what we've done is being able to we put ourselves in a bucket we call catalytic investor, whereby we provide our funds and asking our partners to match these funds and come in and also provide funds that can be used as project development period. That is what we are an institution called the InfraGrow, a fund. We have a viability fund, and we also have a risk fund and a guarantee fund. We hear of InfraCredit today. In front of me, the current MD of NSI is the one that actually incubated InfraCredit. It was a desk in front of me. DBN was a desk in front of me. Family Homes Fund was a desk in front of me, because we realized the fact that for you to be able to develop infrastructure, it's not only by putting your own capital, it's by developing institutions that can attract these fundings and deploy them into such aspects or various aspects. InfraCredit today wants to invest mainly in, because of the type of shareholding that it has, wants to invest in projects that are more commercially viable and private sector led. InfraGrow is going to be towards public sector type of investment, because we notice that there's a debt in that aspect. So how do you crowd in funding? One is being able to put your money where your mouth is, or put your mouth where your money is by putting money on the table. Two, provide corporate governance that will help institutionalize those funds and have them invest in practical, enforceable terms. Then also make sure that your deep pipeline is robust and viable enough, and that is where you do your project prep and your viability funding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I will just continue from where I left off. And I think philanthropy is most effective when we are not the main source of funding. We're not trying to be permanent. We're really just acting as a catalyst. And you spoke about catalytic funding just a moment ago. So philanthropy, the way I see it is that we utilize philanthropy to open the door. We're really, if you think about it like a car, we're really just the shock absorber. We're not the engine. No one government can fund all of the development that we need. I think we're all agreed. And so we absolutely need, yes, public funding. We need private capital. And so the role of philanthropy is really to try to provide a pathway to unlock private capital. So the idea is not just to fund anything that we get given. The idea is to support and help to build the pipeline of investable projects, create and build an ecosystem that will enable industries that do not ordinarily exist today to exist. So I'll give you an example. If the Rockefeller Foundation Zero Growth Fund actually mobilized $30 million, right, over the lifetime of the project since 2019, mobilized $30 million, but to date have crowded in over $1 billion in private capital to fund sustainable development goals across the world and Africa. So I think it's really about the quantum, and that's almost like what, it's a 35x leverage ratio if you think about it, right? So it's really about how much we can unlock. You utilize philanthropy, you open the door, but then how much more can you bring in? Another example is, there's a project, well now a standing organization similar to the examples you just gave, Africanenda, that was funded by the Gates Foundation over the last 4 years. And the role of Africanenda was really to test in Africa the thesis that if we have level 1 payment systems, we will be able to grow digital payments, we will be able to grow retail banking, consumer finance, credit, and things like that. And that project was a seed by the Gates Foundation, funded for 3 years as a project, and now they're running as an organization supporting African governments across Africa in designing and setting up their level 1 payment system. So hopefully the way Nigeria's digital payment system has opened up the industry, we will be able to unlock that in Africa as well. And so that's just an example. In addition to that, Africanenda is now, of course, attracting capital as well. So it's just an example of how we can utilize philanthropy to start, test an idea, pilot it, it works, and then we bring in and open the door for private capital to come in.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to stay with you and ask you a follow-on question. Looking towards the future in terms of plans, what are, I guess, your priorities moving forward? And additionally, where on the spectrum of de-risking do you typically plan to come in? More so, are you speaking more to an acumen, or are you speaking more to an NSIA?
Okay. You want to start with me? So let me put it this way. We see Africa as the next frontier. We're here. That's why we're here. For us, we believe that if you start with, for development goals, climate adaptation is critical. And climate adaptation is critical because a lot of the emissions and challenges we face in Africa were not necessarily caused by us, in truth, right? But the impact is a lot, whether we're talking about agriculture, whether we're talking about just even food security, amongst other things, right? So the impact is great. And so what we're trying to do in projects and crowd in funding in that area. So for us, our focus is really around climate adaptation as well, digital infrastructure, very important for development, as well as healthcare and education. And of course, all of this linked back to livelihoods. So for us, what we're trying to do here is to be the anchor that brings, almost like a multi-stakeholder collaborator or coordinator, and trying to bring all the partners to the table to ensure that we have all the pieces. You know, I spoke earlier about the different stacks and the spectrum of capital, and bringing everybody into the room to make sure that we have all the relevant pieces that will de-risk, that will, and you spoke about FX risk. Yes, we understand that, but there's a way that we can also support in de-risking, whether it's FX or it's political or whatever else, and support, and that's our focus.
Thank you so much for that lovely answer. I'm going to go to Mr. Pius next from the NSIA. If you were developing an investment portfolio looking into 2035, you know, what sectors do you think you will prioritize, and where do you see, I guess, your organization and fund in that amount of years to come?
So I will start by just drawing an illustration. I need to get to Somalia today as an individual. I will not get there in one day. I will not get there in 2 days. I might get there on the third day because I need connecting flight. But I want to move from England to Germany. There's every tendency I'll get there in one day. So the problem we have in Africa is transport and logistics. So if you ask me, I will invest, my portfolio creation will first of all look at transport and logistics. What does it do? It helps to move goods and services. It helps for food security. It helps for job creation. It helps for resource allocation, resource mobilization. If you solve the issue of transport and logistics in Africa today, I can tell you that you solve almost half of our problem, because that means from Kenya to Nigeria, I can actually move resources, and our balance of trade will be easy, and our international trade will be seamless. We have seamless international trade between African countries and Europe and America. We don't have seamless international trade between African countries. And we have abundance. And we have a lot of our produce that are going bad in rural areas because they cannot come to the city on time. It's not that we don't have quality crops, it's not that we don't have quality resources, but how do we get them out and how do we get there? So for me, it's transport and logistics, number one. Number two is energy. And energy is because the cost of your diesel, if there's an international war, there is disruption in moving diesel, moving your fuel, as looking at it from a category, that means most of our industries will suffer. But if we invest in energy, renewable and hydro, when I mean renewable, I know hydro, you can say it's also renewable, but I'm looking at it from solar and wind and the hydro itself. I'm telling you that we will solve a lot of problems. Then the third will be industrialization. I took them in that order because I believe if you solve transport and logistics, you do energy, then your industrialization strategy or implementation will not go bad. But once you don't have those two in place, your industrialization strategy will certainly go bad because there will be cost overrun. Then the last is for you and I, human, our healthcare.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Before we come off the stage, I'll just allow IMF and Acumen answer this one-worded question very, very quickly. If Africa acts decisively over the next decade, and we look back, what we will look back to say was the most important investment decision we made. Yeah, one word.
We have to enable our human capital with artificial intelligence.
Thank you.
It's very important.
Thank you, sir.
Because we have a lot of people, and there are things that are replacing people around the world.
Yeah.
So more children, but they need to be enabled.
AI. Thank you. And for yourself, sir?
I think it's to center productivity before consumption. I'll say policy thesis, investment thesis. I think in terms of the sequencing, we have to invest more in productivity, be it agriculture, energy, and even the workforce before we now start thinking about consumption. Even when you think about the weighting and how the GDP computation is skewed. You know what I mean?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists, please? Thank you so much for your lovely answers and the lovely discussion. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I hope everyone enjoyed listening to us as well. That'll be all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Balaji, great session there. Excellently moderated. Let's have a quick photo up. And thank you to all our panelists for their contributions. And, well, judging by the handshakes, they really had a good time. So let's have a quick photo up. We're moving very quickly into our next plenary session. We also have some goodwill messages as well, but I also want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you joining us online, streaming on the YouTube page of Sterling One Foundation. So thank you so much. Please drop an emoji. Let us know where you are watching from. If there's any major takeaway, just drop it there as well. Let me know what you had for breakfast and what you'd like for lunch virtually. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next plenary session is powered by CEPLAT, and it looks to explore our continent's preparedness for the next generation when it comes to the future of work. As a parent myself, you know, when you're thinking about what next, a lot of narratives are spinning where people are saying whatever you're studying now traditionally will be irrelevant. People like Altman are saying, if you know Altman, NVIDIA and all the other top tech guys are basically saying that the jobs of the future will be things like plumbing, hardcore jobs, not mental jobs, because the definition of a smart person in the near future will not be one that is able to calculate or do some processing or software or anything like that. AI has taken care of that. So the job of the future will require compassion, will require emotional intelligence, soft skills, intangible things that you might not necessarily be able to study in school. And that begs the question, where do you want to chart the course for the next generation of our students? So the title is Powering Africa's Future, Private Sector Leadership in Education Transformation, and the session will examine how strategic partnerships, innovative finance in STEM, education, digital skills, to name a few, will be addressed in a rapidly changing world. And I want to take this time to say a big thank you to CEPLAT for sponsoring that particular session. But before we have that, I will crave your indulgence to give quick opening remarks. We have the Honorable Minister, I introduced her earlier on, the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Federal Minister of Education, Nigeria, the person of Professor Suwaiba Said Ahmad, to give a quick remark. Please do make welcome with a round of applause.
I think I can use this one. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think it's still good morning. Yeah, it's still good morning. Good morning, everyone. My task is very simple. I'm tasked to give an opening remark on the theme, Powering Africa's Future, Private Sector Leadership in Education Transformation, presentation centered on transforming education through digital innovation. But before I go into that conversation, I would like to applaud MTN Foundation for adopting a primary health center. At the same time, I will challenge them also to please adopt a school. It's also very important. It's not always you have this kind of robust participants, so I will say that as MTN is adopting a primary health center, we should equally adopt a school. It will go a long way. You need a well-trained workforce. To get that, you need them to have a very good education, a quality education. And as we are all aware, education is the collective responsibility of everyone, not only the government. Private sector, communities, traditional rulers, everyone have a role to play when we are talking about education. So I want to say that before I go into the conversation. I'm very happy and delighted to participate in this important education session sponsored by CEPLAT at the 2026 ASIS conference. I commend Seplat Energy and the organizers of this conference for their continued commitment to advancing education and human capital development in Africa. The theme, Powering Africa's Future, Private Sector Leadership in Education Transformation, is both timely and relevant as we collectively seek sustainable solutions to the educational challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. Education remains the most strategic investment any nation can make. I repeat, the most strategic investment any nation can make. It is the foundation upon which economic growth, social progress, innovation, and national competitiveness are built. However, the nature of education itself is rapidly changing. The digital revolution is transforming how knowledge is created, accessed, shared, and applied. As a result, countries that successfully harness digital technologies for learning will be better positioned to thrive in the global knowledge economy. Someone is saying that we should make our learners AI-enabled just now. So we need to ensure that we also equally design educational programs that will ensure the digital transformation of Nigeria. Today, I will speak on the topic, transforming education through digital innovation. Digital innovation is no longer an option for education system. It's not whether we will, but we must. It is a necessity. Around the world, technology is redefining learning experiences, expanding access to education, improving teaching effectiveness, strengthening educational management, and creating opportunities for lifelong learning. Digital tools have made it possible to reach learners in remote communities, personalize instruction, improve assessment systems, and equip young learners with skills required for the future of work. For Africa, digital technology offers a unique opportunity to leapfrog traditional barriers and accelerate educational development. It provides us with the means to address challenges related to access, quality, equity, teacher shortages, and learning outcomes. Let me just give you an example. We have a digital platform now for training teachers. Initially, the conventional way of training teachers is physical training. With the budgetary provision and the funding available, probably only able to train a very small percentage of the teachers, 10%, 15% at max. But with the digital training facility now, we can train all teachers, because whether you are in a rural community, urban community, whether you are in public school or private school, with a simple Android phone, you'll be able to access capacity building for that teacher. So technology provides this opportunity. It bridges the barriers, it creates access, and therefore it's important. Most importantly, it also enables us to prepare our young people for a world increasingly driven by technology, artificial intelligence, data, and innovation. In Nigeria, the federal government, under the leadership of His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, recognizes that digital transformation is central to the renewed hope agenda and to the development of a competitive, knowledge-driven economy. Consequently, the Federal Ministry of Education has placed digital innovation at the heart of its education transformation agenda. Digital transformation is at the heart of the Federal Ministry of Education reform agenda. We are integrating technology into teaching, learning, and educational management across all levels to improve access, quality, and learning outcomes. Through the implementation of the National Digital Literacy Framework, we are equipping learners with essential digital competencies while promoting coding, robotics, artificial intelligence, computational thinking, and other emerging technologies, particularly within the STEM education. We are also expanding digital learning opportunities, strengthening school connectivity and digital infrastructure, modernizing education management system, and leveraging technology to improve data-driven planning and accountability. At the same time, we are investing in continuous digital professional development for the teachers, as cited earlier, supporting technology-enabled learning from basic to tertiary education, and working with partners to ensure that every learner, including girls, learners with disabilities, and those in rural and underserved communities can benefit from an inclusive, innovative, and future-ready education system. The ministry has continued to invest in teacher professional development through collaborative programs with key agencies and development partners, recognizing that no education system can rise above the quality of its teachers. The introduction of Edu Revamp represents the ministry's vision of creating a technology-enabled, inclusive, and learner-centered education system that expands access to quality education, strengthen teacher capacity, improve governance, and prepares Nigerian teachers with the knowledge and skill needed to thrive in the 21st century global economy. While progress is being made, we recognize that significant challenges remain. These include inadequate digital infrastructure, limited connectivity in some communities, affordability concerns, electricity deficits, and gaps in digital skills. Addressing these challenges requires collective action and sustained investment. And this is where the role of the private sector becomes indispensable. The scale of transformation required cannot be achieved by government alone. We need strong partnership between government, industries, development partners, civil society organizations, and educational institutions. The private sector possesses the innovation, expertise, technology, and investment capacity necessary to accelerate educational transformation. Let me pause a bit here. Earlier, through the first presentation, somebody said most of the investment in education by the private sector is done in isolation. They are done in silos, and therefore the impact is limited. But right now in the Ministry of Education, we have created a coordination unit. The coordination unit, it starts in ensuring that we sit together on the table with all partners that are interested in investing in education so that we can collectively identify a gap, a challenge, work collectively in addressing once and for all that key challenge. So I'm calling on you. We have an officer dedicated to working with all private investors to sit together, let's operate together so that we can transform education in Nigeria. At this junction, I would like to commend Seplat Energy for its long-standing investment in education through scholarships, teacher development programs, school infrastructure initiative, STEM initiative, and other educational projects. Such investment demonstrates the critical role that responsible corporate organizations can play in strengthening human capital development. Going forward, we encourage private sector engagement in areas such as school connectivity, digital infrastructure, development, educational technology innovation, teacher capacity building, STEM education, artificial intelligence education, technical and vocational education, and lastly, digital skill development for young people. The future of Africa will depend largely on our ability to develop a generation of digitally empowered citizens who can innovate, solve problems, create jobs, and compete globally. Education is the vehicle through which this future will be realized, and digital innovation is the accelerator that will drive the transformation. As we look ahead, our vision is clear. A Nigerian education system where every learner has access to quality digital learning opportunities, where every teacher possesses the skills required to teach effectively in a technology-enabled environment, where schools are connected, inclusive, and innovative, and where education served as a catalyst for economic growth and national development. The task before us is significant, but so too is the opportunity. Together, through strong partnerships and shared commitment to innovation, we can transform education, empower our youth, and build a future-ready Africa. I thank Seplat Energy and the organizers of this conference for providing this platform for a dialogue and collaboration. I look forward to continued partnership that will advance educational transformation across Nigeria and the African continent. Thank you for your attention, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. A round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Honorable Minister of State for Education for that wonderful goodwill message. Very loaded, very impactful. And we want to say a big thank you once again to SEPLAT. If you're with SEPLAT, just wave your hand so we can say big thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I want to specifically acknowledge the presence of the Chief Operating Officer, Samson Ezugwore, and the Chief Finance Officer, Eleanor Adaralegbe, who are here representing the team. We also have SEPLAT's joint venture partner, NNPC. Please, a round of applause to them. Thank you so much. On the invitation of SEPLAT, we have two commissioners and a permanent secretary. We have Professor Bernard Ikegwa, Commissioner for Education, Imo State, Professor Ubong Umo, Commissioner for Education, Akwa Ibom, and of course, Eno Donwai Otamere, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Edo State. Thank you all for acknowledging their invitation and being here specifically for the next panel session. Please give them a round of applause. So I mentioned earlier on that the next session is Powering Africa's Future, Private Sector Leadership in Education Transformation. And this session will examine how strategic partnerships, innovative finance, and STEM education, digital skills can help build an education system that equips young Africans to compete favorably internationally. I would like to call on the former Commissioner of Education, Edo State, in the person of Professor Ngozi Osarere, to come up on stage, one of our panelists. We also have the founder CEO of TESA's Education. I think that would be TESA's Education. I think that will be the proper pronunciation. Thank you very much, Osai Izedonwe, for being here as well. The Director of Programs, British Council. They are no strangers, of course, in the space of education. Their impact goes way, way back. And a couple of us remember going to the British Council to get books long before the internet came into existence. How many of you remember that? How many of you went to the British Council Library? Wow. I'm not that old. How many of you went to the British Council? I'm not that old. I refuse. But for those who do not, all the Nepo babies and the Gen Zs, before internet, we go to the British Council, and it was premium, the books and the movies and the renting of tapes and cassettes. It was phenomenal. We'd like to recognize Director of Programs, British Council, Chikodi Onyemerela. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you for being here, sir. And of course, last but not the least, this one is a bit biased, the introduction, because I know her very well. And I served under her leadership as the PAU Alumni President. But before that, she is a legend in the education space. Not only was she the first Vice Chancellor, but she has, of course, taken monumental strides and taken the university and the education sector forward with her achievements and accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, please do make welcome the first female Vice Chancellor of Pan-Atlantic University, PAU, Professor Enase Okonedo. My result is not yet out, so please, I need the applause very loud. After my master's, I think I might go for a PhD, and she might be my supervisor. So please, let the applause be very loud. And to moderate this session, she's been here already. She needs no introduction, but please do make welcome the CEO, ABC House, in the person of Dr. Maurice Atoki, to moderate the session once again.
I can go to the last one.
So once again, ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause as we commence this session. And once again, just in case you did not hear it, this session is powered by SAPLET, and we're very thankful and grateful to them for making this happen. Dr. Atoke, are you ready? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. of Ceremony. A round of applause once again for Seplat Energy for giving us this opportunity to gather here as leaders in the education sector to share our comments on this very critical topic of powering Africa's future private sector leadership in education transformation. I'd like to start by just really posing the question, how do we build an education system capable of producing the workforce that Africa's future economy demands? And I'm going to chime in multiple questions, but before that, I realized that somebody very important was not recognized. She happens to be my formal engager for this role in the person of the director of in Seplat Energy, just a minute, Director, Social Performance, and yes, please a round of applause for Madam Chioma Afe for doing this and for leading this. It's important that we also recognize her presence. Now, without much ado, and in no particular order, I'm going to start with the questions. But first and foremost, for us to reiterate why we're here and why this theme. Today's panel is indeed a collective leadership one. It is an opportunity for all of us to rethink the relationship between business and education, but more importantly, an invitation to build partnerships that will define Africa's future for generations to come. Having said all of that, I'm going to start with Professor Ngozi Osaremen. Yes, ma'am. Rembrandt. Apologies for that murder. I hope I'm forgiven. Thank you, ma'am. Of the Department of Educational Foundation, University of Lagos. It's a pleasure to have you. Please a round of applause for her. Prof, when we consider teacher development and foundational learning remaining really quite critical levers for improving long-term education outcomes for the continent, in your view, and with your very, very long-term standing experience, what systemic reforms are required in teacher training and pedagogical frameworks to ensure quality learning outcomes at scale? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. There are three key things for me